1990s, video games were beginning to embrace the third dimension. The PC, Sony PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and Nintendo 64 were locked in a feverish race to perfect the polygonal playground. In 1996, id Software finished Quake, Capcom released Resident Evil, Nintendo dropped Super Mario 64, and Sony created Crash Bandicoot. Gamers suddenly had to manage camera control and multi-directional movement after side-scrollers had dominated the previous decade. A year earlier, England-based Core Design began working on a 3D action-adventure set in ancient catacombs filled with undiscovered treasure, a genre that was recently popularized by the Indiana Jones trilogy. To separate their concept from Lucasfilm's famed American archaeologist, animator Toby Gard made his central character a British woman. Originally dubbed Laura Cruz, the heroine's first name was simplified, presumably to help in pronunciation, and a scan of the local telephone book in Derby came up with a more UK-sounding last name. Tomb Raider launched on November 14, 1996 for the Saturn, PlayStation, and MS-DOS. It starred Lara Croft, a voluptuous gunslinger whose name appeared on the game's box art as if she was already a celebrity.
What's a man gotta do to get that kind of attention from you?
It's hard to say exactly, but you seem to be doing fine.
Lara's voice was supplied by Shelley Blond, who would go on to pursue a career in voiceover but never returned for a second Tomb Raider game.
How does that make your wallet rumble?
I'm sorry, I only play for sport.
Lara's outlandish proportions were the result of Toby Gard accidentally adjusting the slider for her bosom too far. Once his fellow developers saw the results, there was no going back. Lara began her first adventure in the employment of business tycoon Jacqueline Natla. She was hired to hunt down one piece of a relic known as the Skion. The legend said was owned by the rulers of Atlantis. Lara uncovered the first fragment in Peru, and after being double-crossed by her employers, sought the rest of the relic in Greece, Egypt, and eventually the lost living city of Atlantis. Natla turned out to be one of the kingdom's creators. She was placed in stasis for centuries by her fellow rulers Qualopec and Tihocan, after using the Skion to birth genetic mutations. After a confrontation with Natla and her abominations, Lara escaped the island pyramid, as it was again lost to the ages. Tomb Raider made its name doing three things brilliantly: exploration, puzzle solving, and gunplay. Sprawling catacombs housed switches and levers that opened doors to dens of enemies, from wolves to dinosaurs to gun-wielding mercenaries. Lara auto-targeted her foes with a pair of pistols, magnums, Uzis, or a shotgun. Ammo and health packs could be picked up off enemies or found in a number of secret hidey holes. Lara started with her trusty dual pistols and had to pick up the other weapons manually. In case her magnum, Uzi, or shotgun stock was depleted, Lara's signature shooters never ran dry. Lara made a splash because of how gracefully she moved throughout each environment. She could jump, flip, dive, roll, sidestep, climb, hang, shimmy, swim, and move giant blocks to open passages or create stepping stones. Some puzzles encompassed entire rooms and featured segments that could be completed in any order. Players could save anywhere in the DOS version, while floating blue crystals allowed the player to save once per location on the Saturn and PS1. Every precipitous ledge potentially led to a shocking, painful death. Before jumping into the adventure, players had the option of visiting Lara's home, Croft Manor, and practicing her traversal skills on custom-built platforms. At the time of Tomb Raider's release, Eidos Interactive was rumored to be facing financial difficulties and could have never predicted the game's phenomenal success. It received the Origins Award for Best Action Computer Game of 1997, topped the British game sales charts a record 3 times, and to date has sold over 8 million copies, roughly tying its sequel for the 4th best-selling PS1 game of all time. But if Tomb Raider was a household name, Lara Croft was an international superstar.
So you think all this talking is just holding me up?
She appeared on the cover of several magazines, some that had little to do with games, and several companies wanted her to be their spokesperson. Some fans were so hot and bothered for Miss Croft, they devised a patch called Nude Raider that left Lara in her birthday suit, a secret mode originally suggested to and rejected by Toby Gard, and they faced legal action from Eidos ever since. Lara was becoming so close to being an actual person that Eidos decided to hire a flesh-and-blood woman to portray her at all their trade events. Natalie Cook was hired to don the ponytail and pistols for commercials and the European Computer Trade Show in 1996, but aspiring actress Rhoda Mitra inexplicably replaced her in 1997 after the game was finally released. This shuffling of Lara models would repeat itself several times throughout the franchise's lifespan.
Evolution's in a rut. Shipping out fresh meat will incite territorial rages again. Will strengthen and advance us. Even create new breeds.
All this attention must have gone straight to Lara's head, but it began to upset her creator, Toby Gard. He had always seen the Tomb Raider as a brave, confident go-getter, a role model for a generation of young girls without many women to look up to that weren't valued solely as objects. The fact that she had become gaming's latest pin-up girl didn't sit well with him, and as plans were quickly being assembled for another Croft adventure, Toby left Core Design. Toby was replaced by Stuart Atkinson, and the development team more than doubled. It took 18 months to develop the first game, but Core delivered the sequel in less than a year. A month before its release, Sony Computer Entertainment America finished a deal with Eidos to keep the console version of each Tomb Raider sequel exclusive to the PlayStation until the year 2000. Tomb Raider 2 landed in stores a year after its predecessor on November 18, 1997. Tomb Raider 2 starred actress Judith Gibbons, who, aside from Lara's third game, has no other acting credits to her name.
Pardon me, if that was just your way of trying the doors for me.
The developers streamlined Lara's digital curves and gave the heroine a bobbing ponytail. The acrobatic wonder could now wade through waist-deep water and perform a 180 while jumping or swimming. She changed out of her tight white shirt and brown shorts for a few areas, donning a wetsuit and bomber jacket. Flares were added to her backpack to navigate pitch-black areas, her arsenal expanded to include an M16, grenade launcher, and harpoon gun, and Lara could hijack 2 types of vehicles, boats and snowmobiles. The story followed Lara in pursuit of the dagger of Xian, a relic used by an ancient emperor of China and rumored to turn anyone who stabbed themselves in the heart with it into a dragon. Marco Bartoli, an Italian mafia figure, desired the dagger as much as Lara. She squared off against his minions in Venice, Tibet, and China, along with an oil rig, the wreck of the sunken Maria Dora, and Lara's manor, when Bartoli's men sought revenge after their boss and his draconic dreams went up in smoke. Like the PC version of the original, Tomb Raider 2 on PS1 let players save at any point. This helped fans manage the more action-focused levels that ventured outside much more than the first Tomb Raider. Zip lines carried Lara across wide gaps, and certain windows could be shot out. Secret areas now held one gold, silver, and jade dragon statue per level that awarded a cache of supplies when all three were discovered. Tomb Raider 2 was a highly anticipated game, and despite average reviews, it quickly surpassed the sales figures of the original, although the total sales of both games would eventually even out. Lara's mug began showing up in commercials for the Spanish automobile company Seat, the UK sports drink Lucozade, and U2 used her likeness in the 1997 World Tour Pop Mart. The team at Eidos was committed to delivering a new Tomb Raider every November, so there was no break between the development of Tomb Raider 2 and its inevitable sequel. Tomb Raider 3 launched on November 21, 1998. Lara's appearance didn't change much in her third game, and her voice remained the same, but the gameplay featured a few enhancements. Lara could crouch, crawl, sprint, and swing over bars. She could now operate a quad bike, kayak, hydropropeller, and minecart. Quicksand and freezing rivers were added to the list of hazards, and piranha hunted Lara underwater. Save crystals returned on the PS1, but players now collected and kept them to use wherever they liked.
It's not from India, rather an island near Antarctica. It is in fact meteorite rock. See that? That's unique. An unknown material.
So how did it end up here?
Lara's newest conquest was to capture 4 stones crafted from a meteorite that crashed into Antarctica millions of years ago. She found the first in an Indian jungle, and after meeting Dr. Mark Willard from the RX Tech Corporation, found out the other 3 lay resting in 3 spots around the globe. For the first time, the player could choose the order they would explore these 3 regions: the beaches of the South Pacific, Area 51 in the Nevada desert, and the cobbled streets of London. Tomb Raider 3's reviews and sales did not match the game that came before it, but it has sold a total of 6.5 million copies worldwide on the PS1, making it the 10th best-selling game for the system. Lara's popularity continued to rise. Rona Mitra was replaced by Nell McAndrew for Tomb Raider 3's promotion. Even the first game reappeared in the spotlight with the release of Tomb Raider Gold exclusively for PC and Mac. The package featured the original game along with 4 new levels spread across 2 new scenarios called Shadow of the Cat and Unfinished Business. While the 3D generation of games was still trying to find its footing, Lara had effectively shown the big boys how it was done. Critiques raised against the second and third Tomb Raider games mostly took note that not much had substantially changed in the series since the first adventure. The team at Eidos had focused more on quantity than quality when it came to each subsequent release. And while fans were still stuck on Lara Croft, she would have to keep fighting to stay alive. In part 2 of our Tomb Raider retrospective, Lara dies and is born again. She leaves the PlayStation 1 and launches expeditions on the PlayStation 2, Game Boy Color, and the silver screen.